The ocean breeze caught the edge of a lace-trimmed veil. A crowd of Hollywood royalty and newly minted NBA champions just, froze in awe.
Oh, it was a moment.
Yeah. And just like that, against the crashing waves of Malibu, Hollywood had a new obsession. Jordyn Woods and Karl-Anthony Towns finally said, I do.
It was the kind of cinematic moment that felt almost staged for a movie poster, but the emotion radiating from the altar, it was incredibly real.
Totally.
Every single detail was perfectly, almost like ruthlessly curated.
Welcome to StarScope Report. Join Jordyn and Jamie as we uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
Yes, we do.
Today, we have a massive mission for you. We are doing a deep dive into the absolute spectacle that was the wedding of Jordyn Woods and Karl-Anthony Towns. We're going to explore the lavish, million-dollar aesthetics, the viral internet debates it sparked regarding extreme wealth, and maybe most importantly, the intensely emotional 5-year journey that actually led them to this peak moment.
Right, because when you look past the glamorous headlines and the designer labels, there is this fascinating sociological story happening here. Mm-hmm. It's a masterclass in visual storytelling, really, a case study in how the public perceives immense wealth and ultimately a relationship forged in some incredibly dark, unimaginable times.
Yeah, I want to start by looking at the visual strategy of this entire event because, wow, the build up to this wedding was entirely intentional.
Highly intentional.
That obsession with visual perfection didn't just start at the altar. It actually kicked off at Jordyn's bachelorette party in St. Bart's. I mean, according to the coverage, she had her entire squad in matching bathing suits for the specific purpose of making herself, the bride, visually pop in the center of every photograph.
Which is, it's a brilliant, highly calculated use of color theory. By homogenizing the background in this case, her bridesmaid's the eye is naturally drawn entirely to the focal point.
Which is her.
Exactly, the bride. It's a very smart precursor to the visual strategy they used at the actual wedding ceremony. They were basically training the public's eye on how to look at them.
That makes so much sense. And the proposal itself really set the baseline for this level of extravagance. We are talking Christmas Day 2025.
Right.
They're at the Overstory rooftop bar in New York City, complete with this massive Merry Christmas sign. But we have to talk about the ring.
Oh, the ring. We absolutely have to talk about the ring.
Because the details here are staggering. We are talking about a 10 to 15 carat emerald cut diamond. Now, for anyone listening who isn't a gemologist, why is an emerald cut such a big deal?
Well, an emerald cut is basically a hall of mirrors. It's a step cut with these long, open facets. Mm-hmm. And because of that open structure, it is incredibly unforgiving.
Like it shows everything.
Exactly. It doesn't hide flaws or inclusions the way the sparkly facets of, say, a round, brilliant cut might. Mm-hmm. So to have a stone of that sheer size, 10 to 15 carats, it requires a diamond of exceptional, almost impossible clarity. But structurally, the center stone isn't even the most fascinating part of what they designed.
Right. The band itself is where the customization just gets wild. It features these extremely rare pink ombre pave diamonds. And for you guys listening, pave basically means the band is paved with tiny diamonds set so closely together you can't even see the metal underneath. These pink diamonds cascade from a dark, intense shade into a light pastel rosy hue. Plus, as if that wasn't enough, there are 6 hidden colored gemstones underneath the band. The estimated value floating around is over $1 million.
It's insane. To put that market value into context, intense pink diamonds are some of the rarest stones on the planet. They can easily exceed $100,000 per carat on their own.
Wait, really? Just per carat?
Just per carat. And the ombre effect requires sourcing stones of exact graduating shades from all around the world, which makes the craftsmanship practically bespoke. It's not just a ring. It's a highly liquid, wearable asset.
No, I have to push back a little here on the sheer scale of the spending, right? Because context matters.
Okay.
Karl-Anthony Towns recently signed what the NBA calls a Supermax extension, a $220.4 million contract. He's pulling in around $43 million this year alone. A max contract basically means he's being paid the absolute maximum percentage of the team's salary cap allowed by the league. So with that kind of astronomical income, is a $1 million ring actually a grand romantic gesture, or is it just, the baseline expectation for someone in his tax bracket?
That's a great question. Mm-hmm. But I actually don't think it's just a baseline flex, and here's why. Wealth can easily buy size.
Yeah.
If he just wanted to hit a quota, he could have walked into a high-end jeweler, and bought a generic 20-carat rock off the shelf. But the curation of those specific rare details, the hidden gemstones that likely have personal meaning, the gradient of the pink diamonds that shows a massive investment of time and intention.
Right. It's not just throwing money at it.
Exactly.
Right.
It elevates the ring from a simple price tag to a deeply considered statement piece.
Well, that obsession with visual perfection and intention didn't stop at the jewelry. It scaled up to the entire Malibu coastline for the main event on Saturday, August 15th, 2026. The fashion was it was incredibly cinematic.
So cinematic.
Jordyn wore a vintage Hollywood-inspired white strapless satin gown. It had this beautifully structured bodice, a dramatic flowing skirt, this delicate lace scarf, and she carried a very simple bouquet of calla lilies.
It was classic, elegant, and very structural. And Karl-Anthony complemented that perfectly in a black, double-breasted tuxedo, accented with 2 brooches. But the true visual impact, the thing that made the photos look like a magazine editorial, came from the guests.
The aesthetic contrast was totally stunning. You had the sea of white floral arrangements everywhere, the crashing waves of the Pacific Ocean right behind them. And then the guests were held to a strict, non-negotiable, all-black dress code.
That is the psychology of control at play right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When every single guest is wearing black, they essentially become negative space. It completely eliminates any visual noise.
Huh, that's true.
Think about modern celebrity weddings. They often function more as brand activations and curated content ecosystems than traditional ceremonies. The all-black guest list intentionally directed all focus, all the light, onto the bride in white. It turns a crowd of highly recognizable, usually center-stage celebrities into a cohesive, elegant, subservient backdrop.
And what a crowd it was to turn into a backdrop. It felt like a crossover episode between the NBA Finals and the Oscars.
Literally.
You had Justin and Hailey Bieber, Michael B. Jordan, Jada Pinkett Smith, Ben Stiller, and Christine Taylor. And then mingling right alongside Hollywood royalty, the New York Knicks champions.
Right.
Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, and Jalen Brunson, who actually showed up in a cast from his off-season surgery.
It perfectly represents the merging of their 2 power centers. Hollywood elite meeting professional basketball royalty, all unified under one aesthetic rule.
Even the party favors were a massive flex. Guests left with Fanatics bags, In-N-Out cups, and married in 5 hoodies.
Which is such a good detail.
It's a brilliant, direct nod to the Knicks NBA Finals Game 5 victory. It's like they branded their own romance. But among that sea of famous faces in black, one guest's presence had the internet completely spiraling.
Oh, boy. Did it ever?
I'll talk about the shocking reunion nobody saw coming right after this.
It really was the moment that shifted the conversation entirely. Suddenly, we weren't just talking about the aesthetics of the wedding. We were talking about the complex, deeply rooted interpersonal histories of the people attending.
If you're loving these Hollywood twists, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead. Okay, let's get into it. The all-black sea of guests' parts and who arrives. Kylie Jenner.
The gasp heard around the internet.
Alongside Timothée Chalamet. For anyone who needs a quick 5-second pop culture refresher, Jordyn and Kylie had one of the most publicized, messy falling outs in internet history back in 2019 involving the Tristan Thompson scandal. Jordyn was, effectively excommunicated from the Kardashian inner circle. So her being at this wedding, it signals that the hatchet isn't just buried, it's fossilized.
What's fascinating here is the power dynamic of the invocation itself. Weddings are highly curated ecosystems. By inviting Kylie, and more importantly, by Kylie attending in that required black dress code, they're publicly communicating a restoration of order.
Right.
Kylie Jenner is used to being the absolute center of attention wherever she goes. For her to submit to Jordyn's aesthetic rules, to blend into the background in black so Jordyn can shine in white, it's a massive visual concession. It's a very public closing of a very painful chapter.
It really is. But while the guests were celebrating the mending of old wounds, the public was doing what the public does best, arguing aggressively about money.
Naturally.
The lavishness of this wedding sparked a fierce debate online, particularly highlighted on a live broadcast by the Shade Room. The core question that had everyone up in arms was this: should a bride and groom with immense wealth, knowing about KT's $43 million yearly salary, pay for their bridesmaids' dresses, hair, and makeup to avoid putting their friends in a financial bind?
This is the classic clash between traditional wedding etiquette and the public's perception of extreme wealth. Usually, bridesmaids expect to incur some costs. That's just the social contract of being in a wedding.
Sure.
But the internet looks at a $220 million max contract and says, why on earth should your friends have to pay a single dime?
And the internet was fiercely divided on this. Some argued that bridesmaids should just pay for their own hair and makeup because, quote, you were going to get your hair and makeup done anyway to go to a high-profile wedding. But others brought up the very real logistical point about dress styles. They complained that there are too many chefs in the kitchen when women of all different shapes, sizes, and financial backgrounds are forced to buy and wear the exact same designer dress. I was reading comments where fans literally told bridesmaids to just go to Fashion Nova if they were broke.
Ouch. The Fashion Nova comment is harsh, but it masks a very real underlying financial anxiety that the public is projecting onto this event. It brings up this concept of parasocial relationships.
Let's define that really quick for the listener because it's a great term.
Yeah, a parasocial relationship is basically a one-sided dynamic where we, the public, consume so much content about a celebrity that we feel like we actually know them personally.
Right, like they're our actual friend.
Exactly. And because of that false intimacy, we engage in what I call parasocial auditing. We feel entitled to audit their spreadsheets and their budgets simply because their salary is public knowledge on Google.
Honestly, I have to say, I think the internet has a valid point here. I want you, the listener, to think about the last wedding you went to. You probably stressed over the cost of the hotel, the flight, the gift, the outfit.
Oh, definitely.
Now multiply that anxiety by 100, put it on a global stage where millions of people are judging your dress, and you start to understand the psychology of the bridesmaids in this scenario. I mean, if my best friend is making $43 million this year, and they demand a hyper-specific aesthetic for their photos, I feel like they should cover the $500 dress. Doesn't wealth of that magnitude alter the social contract?
I hear that, but I have to disagree.
Really?
Yeah. Just because your friend gets a massive promotion doesn't mean they owe you a free vacation. A wedding is a personal event with personal boundaries. Extreme wealth completely warps public expectations of etiquette. The rules of a normal wedding, where a couple might be saving for years just to afford basic catering, are suddenly thrown out the window by the audience.
That's true. People do hold them to a different standard.
Right. The public assumes unlimited resources means unlimited generosity. But fairness rarely enters the equation on social media. They calculate a moral obligation that says wealth erases all boundaries, and that's just not how adult friendships work.
That's a really fair counterpoint. It shifts the debate from can they afford it to should they be expected to, and then the debate shifted again to the infamous no plus ones rule. People were arguing over whether it's inherently rude to force a guest to attend a romantic event alone, or if you should just respect the invite and the couple's strict head count, no matter how big their budget is.
It is genuinely amusing to watch the public treat a highly exclusive celebrity wedding like their own personal group chat drama.
It really is.
But it proves how invested we are in the mechanics of their lives.
Well, the internet might be hyper-focused on the money, the budgets, and the drama. But underneath all the glitz, the dresses, and the diamonds is a heartbreaking backstory that actually forged this entire relationship. You won't want to miss how they got here.
It completely reframes everything we just analyzed.
Yeah.
Once you understand their history, the luxury isn't just a superficial display, it becomes a profound contrast to where they started.
Exactly. Because before the fame, before the $1 million rings and the NBA championships, Jordyn and Karl-Anthony bonded over profound loss. They were actually best friends for years before they ever started dating.
Which is a crucial foundation. They knew each other outside the context of a romantic performance. They had a baseline of trust.
And they desperately needed that foundation. In 2017, Jordyn tragically lost her father. Then, in April of 2020, right at the onset of the pandemic, when the world was terrified and locked down, Karl-Anthony lost his mother to COVID-19.
Yeah.
They were both navigating unimaginable, life-altering grief at a very young age.
Grief of that magnitude is incredibly isolating. It creates a reality that people who haven't experienced it simply cannot understand. To have a best friend who fundamentally grasps that specific type of darkness, who doesn't need you to explain why you're sad today, that is an incredibly rare bond.
And the pandemic forced a massive pivot for them. The world had stopped, they were leaning heavily on each other to survive the grief, and they had to make a choice. Do we stay just friends and protect what we have? Or do we risk ruining the friendship for something more?
Right.
They chose to risk it. They went Instagram official in September 2020, and the captions they chose were so raw. Jordyn wrote, "I found you, then I found me." And Karl-Anthony wrote, "There are darknesses in life and there are lights, and you are one of the lights."
I love looking at the mechanics of those captions. Those aren't your typical glossy, PR-approved celebrity statements. There are darknesses in life that is a direct, unfiltered acknowledgement of the trauma they survived together.
Absolutely.
Instead of relying on cliches, their relationship was essentially built backwards. Most couples start with the highlight reel, the fun dates, the vacations, the easy stuff, and they face the dark, tragic stuff years later. Jordyn and Karl-Anthony started in the darkest room possible and eventually walked out into the light together.
And Jordyn has been incredibly unwavering in her support ever since they stepped into that light. Before KT was traded to New York in 2024, she was constantly traveling long distance, flying back and forth to Minnesota to be with him and support his career. And then she became a massive, highly publicized courtside presence during the Knicks' incredible run to end their 53-year championship drought.
Her physical presence at those high-stakes games was highly visible and very symbolic of that enduring support. But it wasn't just about being a supportive partner. It was about building a joint empire.
Oh, absolutely. We have to talk about how they leveraged that visibility. During that championship run, she constantly carried this specific bag, the Summer Citrus Orange Ostrich Tux Clutch mini bag from her own brand, Woods by Jordyn, and her activewear line, Sex and Ensure. It became legendary among Knicks fans. Karl-Anthony actually praised it in the press, calling the bag magic and literally the greatest clothing article in basketball history.
That moment is so important because it signals a shift away from traditional wag culture wives and girlfriends just sitting in the stands. By hyping her product on a global NBA stage, Karl-Anthony was actively cross-promoting her business.
Right. It's a team effort.
Exactly. It's a beautiful way for him to publicly validate her entrepreneurship, intertwining her financial and professional success with his own on the court. It shows that in 2026, a modern power couple operates as a unified corporate entity just as much as a romantic one.
So we look at this entire timeline. They weather a car accident, physical rehab, the sudden tragic deaths of their parents. They build a relationship backwards, starting in grief, and they walk out of that fire into this absolute peak moment. An NBA championship, a thriving business, and a stunning star-studded Malibu wedding that commands the world's attention. Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next, because this kind of Hollywood trajectory is rare.
It really is rare, and understanding their shared grief absolutely changes how we should view that lavish Malibu wedding. It wasn't just a Hollywood flex. It wasn't just a display of a $43 million salary to make people jealous.
Yeah.
It was a victory lap. It was a highly curated celebration for two people who survived immense darkness together and managed to come out the other side not just intact, but thriving.
But that raises a fascinating psychological question. Can a relationship built in the trenches of trauma easily transition to the incredibly high highs of immense wealth, massive public attention, and a championship? Usually, trauma bonds are about survival mechanics. You hold on to each other so you don't drown.
Right.
What happens when you're no longer just surviving, but you are standing on top of the world with all the money and access you could ever want?
That is the ultimate test of their foundation. Navigating the transition from relying on each other in the dark to standing next to each other in the brightest possible spotlight requires an entirely new set of relationship skills. The tools you use to survive a storm aren't always the same tools you need to build a mansion.
That's a great way to put it. Which leaves us with a lingering thought for you, the listener, to mull over as we wrap up. When a couple's foundational bond is forged by surviving intense, highly public grief, how does that alter the way they navigate a highly public marriage? Will this early exposure to life's fragility make their Hollywood romance the rare exception that actually outlasts the dismal statistics of celebrity divorces? In the end, does surviving the absolute worst ensure you are equipped to handle the absolute best?
That's the multi-million-dollar question. A relationship built on grief and grown in the spotlight defies easy categorization. It's complex, it's beautiful, and it's entirely their own.
It certainly is. You've been listening to StarScope Report, where Jordyn and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.